Hey, what's up, everybody? Chicago Goonie here, bringing another Arsenal talk. In this Arsenal talk, I'll just be continuing on with the kind of like the aftermath of the North London derby, and uh, pretty much the main question of this episode is, where do we go from here? What do we do from here? This game really, it really dug the knife in the back a little bit. It's really, I don't think, some people understand the possible implications from this game, and to understand uh, the problem after the game, of what we face going into the rest of the season. Because that's the main question: where do we go from here? We had great form leading up to this game. We were on a confidence high, the highest confidence that we've had all season long. Playing at the top of our game, playing great football on both ends. Finally having a competent DM to cover for the back four. But then it all goes to shit. In one game, it just all goes to shit. There's only 14 games left in the Premier League season. That's it, 14 games. Um, just like going back to like the 12 and 13 season, not so much last year, where we had to, in the 12 and 13 season, we really had to depend on other teams. Yeah, we have to depend on ourselves, and we have to go out there and perform and get max points every single game. And that's what we did in the 12 and 13 season. I mean, it was kind of like a crazy, amazing run. It was a grinded out rest of the season for Arsenal in the 12 and 13 season, if you remember that. Last year, it wasn't exactly a grind it out. I mean, I don't think at any point in time, I know there was at one point, late in the season where, Everton really had a chance to overtake us, but, our quality came back, players came back from injury at the right time, and we continued on and playing good football. Last year it was, more based on, kind of like this year in the beginning of the season of injuries and whatnot. But in this season, yeah, injuries hurt us, but at the same time, we still had enough quality to win games and not draw games and not even lose games. Uh, but again, like beginning of the season, it was all tactical. The formation was all wrong. The player personnel was all wrong on the pitch. Um, and there just wasn't enough goals being scored from players, just because of the tactical reasons, because you're trying to clutter the midfield between Ramsey and Jack and Arteta or Flamini. It was a clusterfuck. But it's watching Twitter throughout the day and night here, and seeing some of the comments that people are making, it's laughable. It's almost like they didn't even watch the game, rather than they're almost kind of going off of what other people are saying. Maybe they follow a couple uh, respected gooners that make great comments all the time, and they make one comment and they just like feed off of that. Um, this is, it seems like it happens a few times a year at least, with Arsenal, consistently, that the players need to be held accountable for this. I mean, this is, people who are saying Wenger out after this loss. Yeah, you can blame some things on him, but the majority of the blame goes on the players. Two players in particular, with Aaron Ramsey and Santi Cazorla, of how poorly they played. Um, People are saying Wenger out, and people are even blaming the ref. I mean, to be honest with you, that was a pretty fair game that was called uh, by Atkinson today. I didn't see any type of real. There's some ticky tack stuff that was going on. Sometimes he had to call those fouls just because of the fact that it is a derby, and um, sometimes it can get over physical to the point to where players start, kind of like hurting themselves. They go in a little bit too hard. They go in a little bit too fast. Studs up. Harry Kane had a challenge today that his studs were up, and yeah, he got the yellow card. But again, maybe if, in a normal game, if it wasn't a derby game, you could possibly even say that could have been possibly a red card because he came up from behind, studs up, and usually, normally even in the Premier League, that's a red card offense when you go studs up, coming up from behind someone. Um, but again, it's a derby game. There's nothing that the referee can really be blamed for. I know people are trying to rant and rave about I think Per Mertesacker was tugged down a little bit in the box, but when it's something that minor, uh, it's tough for any referee to actually call that. If he was being tugged down on a set piece, it was the end of a set piece. It was Spurs cleared, and then all of a sudden Mertesacker was kind of pulled down a little bit. He went down a little bit too easily, especially for his size. If it was more based on a cross was coming in from a corner and then he was tugged down, then yeah, you have to call that because if he had a viable chance to score off of a header, then you have to call that. But in those concerns, you can't call that. It's too severe of a penalty to really call that. Um, so people who are calling for the ref and saying it's the ref's fault, I mean, come on, get over it. Instead of blaming the ref, instead of blaming Wenger, you have to blame the players. There's been several times where it's been all Wenger's fault. Especially early in the season with his tactics and his formation and not putting the players in the right positions to succeed. But in this game, I mean, it was all the players. It seemed like half the players showed up to play, the other half didn't, and you can pinpoint who those players were. In games like this, right in the beginning, right when the starting 11 was announced, uh, it blew up on Twitter saying, "Oh my God, no Theo," because it's just shocking that if Theo's fit, he should be playing in this game. Because he loves these games. He's next to Rizicki, he's one of the more senior members on the team, and guys like that who understand the derby, who's been with the club for 7, 8 years, understands it. They understand how physical it can get. They understand what it means to maybe someone who has only been with the club for maybe a year, maybe 2 years. I would have still started Mesut Ozil either way, but not starting Theo Walcott was a mistake because he's in form. He's scored the last two games. Danny Welbeck's been out for. While he played good, Danny Welbeck did play well. He didn't play great, but he played well enough. Um, how can you leave a goal scorer that's in form out of the side? Mesut Ozil played. He scored and like 2 goals and 1 assist in his last 2 games. Now he has 3 goals and 1 assist in his last 3 games. But how do you leave another guy who has scored and is in form, who is building his confidence back up, and who loves to play these games? How do you leave him out? I know they're really, it's like kid gloves with his knee. I understand it. It's an ACL injury. You really need to be cautious with an ACL injury and bringing a player back. But um, if you watch Theo playing that Aston Villa game, I mean, he was going balls out. He was going full force. His pace was there on display throughout the entire game that he was in. I think he got taken out in the 70th minute of the Villa game. So there's no real setbacks. There's no real kind of okay, we have to be a little cautious on this because it doesn't really make any sense because Mesut Ozil didn't have an ACL injury, but he did have a knee injury. I think it was the MCL, He had a MCL sprain, I believe it was, or a slight tear in his MCL. Um, so he had a knee problem, but yet, he's playing the full 90. He played the full 90 in Villa. He played the full 90 today. He was taken out about about the 60th minute or so, 65th minute in the Brighton game, which is understandable. It was like basically his first game back, at least in the starting 11. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I know you can push it to the way that we're going to play defensive. Theo Walcott is not exactly the most defensive player on the planet. He doesn't always track back. But at the same time, when it's games like this, and he knows what's at stake, he really puts in that extra effort. He really puts in, he really pumps up his workload for the game because he knows how much it means to the fans and the club. So it was really weird to see that starting 11 being announced and that he was not a part of the team. Of course, how do you shape the team if you put Theo Walcott in? Because you can't leave out Mesut Ozil because he's in form as well. You can't leave out Sandy Cazorla because he's in form as well. Even though he played like dog shit, he was in form. Um, so who do you leave out? Do you leave out Aaron Ramsey? You almost have to, yeah. If I didn't rewatch the game, but going back from memory, I mean, he was pushing it so far up the pitch uh, defensively, um, leaving Bellerin on an island vulnerable throughout the entire game, providing no cover whatsoever for Bellerin. Um, so do you leave an Aaron Ramsey out of this game? Absolutely. You just push Santi back into the CM spot, and then you put Mesut Ozil as the number 10, and you put Theo out on the other part of the wing. It would have changed the whole dynamic of the game because you add that pace, you add the probability of Theo Walcott getting behind the defense. Danny Welbeck did it a couple times early in the game, and you could see his pace being a problem. His pace and his strength was a real problem for Danny Rose. Danny Rose got forward a lot. He was pretty much wide. He had acres of space in front of him at times in the first half. He had a couple shots on goal, but at the same time, you still have to. They still had to compensate for Danny Welbeck's pace and his strength, and it worked out. That was our first goal. It was his pace and his strength that led us up to the goal. That started the sequence between him and Giroud and Ozil to get that first goal. But then after that, it was just like, okay, we got a goal, just like last year. Rosicky got a goal in the first like 2 minutes of the game, and we just played defensive the entire game for the rest of the 90. Yeah, we came out with the win, but you can't always depend on that. You can't always say, okay, we have enough quality to defend, and we can ride this out. When you could see even in the first half that wasn't going to happen. They were knocking on the door pretty much almost right after we scored. They were just coming wave after wave after wave, and we just couldn't do anything about it because of our possession. Aaron Ramsey, Santi Cazorla, they were giving the ball away all the time. We would regain possession, we would pass it to one of those guys, and they would just lose it. Their touches, their passing was just horrid. I can't even stress enough of how terrible they were today. So like I said, do you leave Aaron Ramsey out? Yeah, he should have. He should have been pulled after the first half. I mean, that's how bad he was even in the first half. Um, but to go on to everything else, it's the real question is, where do we go from here? Because the main question I have for myself is, or the main problem I have is of what I've been thinking about throughout the rest of the day here and night is now we have to depend on other teams because the only game that we have left that's in front of us we have two games, but Chelsea is just forget about that. That it doesn't have any bearing on us whatsoever because uh, you know after today they basically kind of like won the league. Um, City drew, and then they won. They're 7 points up. Uh, but the only team that we have in front of us that we can catch is Manchester United, who is currently in fourth. They play. Well, when you hear this, they play today against West Ham. Hopefully, West Ham can start playing like they did earlier in the season. Their form has dipped a little bit lately. I know they're dealing with some injuries as well, but that's the only team that we play. We don't play Southampton again. That's why the Southampton game and this Tottenham game were two of the biggest fixtures. Even like the Man City game, those three were the three big fixtures early in the second half of the season. Because if we lose those games, it's going to be tough to catch them. Just based on the fact that we have to start depending on other teams now to beat them or to nick a point against them. And we shouldn't be acting like that. That we shouldn't be down to that level. It's almost like the 12 and 13 season where I think we were 8 points behind. And a lot of people are saying this. Well, we were 8 points behind Tottenham, and 2 3 years ago, and it can happen again. Forget about the past. The past is the past. Yeah, you can celebrate the past and you can look back on it and be happy, but you have to look at now. This is a completely different team. This is completely different. All the teams in front of us are completely different from when it was years ago. Again, we don't play Southampton again. We don't play Tottenham again. We have to pray that Chelsea, whoever Southampton and Tottenham play for the rest of the season, falters. That they lose points, that they get draws, they at least lose at least 2 or 3 more games for us to really catch them. Tottenham's only 1 point ahead of us. Southampton is currently on 45 points. They're a full game ahead of us, so they can lose a game right now and be okay. That's something that you do not want to look at. That Manchester United game at the end of the season, second to the last game of the season at Old Trafford. That's going to be possibly the biggest game of the season. That could define whether we get into the top four, or we get back into the top four. That can define possibly third and fourth place. That can possibly be fourth place right there. And coming so late in the season, it's going to be huge. Because again, where do we go from here? I mean, we have 14 games left. That's it. 14 games left. And at this point, every game is a must-win. And that's how you have to look at it from this point forward. Is every game is a must-win. We cannot fully depend on the rest of the teams in the BPL to beat Southampton 2 or 3 times, or to beat Tottenham two or three times, or Manchester United 2 or 3 times. Because that's what needs to happen. And we still have Chelsea, we still have Manchester United to go as two of our toughest games left on the schedule. We still have Liverpool, we still have Everton as well. Last week, those are in the bag, winnable games. In the bag type wins, in my opinion. Now, when you see this type of performance in a North London derby, now we're kind of brought back down to earth. Now we're kind of like, holy shit, the sky is kind of falling, because it is a little bit. Because I'll give Tottenham their credit. They played well. They deserved it. They deserved to win. They played with heart. They played with some passion, and they gave it everything they had. To where other players on Arsenal, naming Aaron Ramsey, Santi Cazorla, it looked like they didn't even get off the bus. Oliver Giroud, I mean, is he a striker? Is he a cam? Is he a number 10? Is he a winger? I mean, what the fuck is he? Be a striker. Your position as a striker, be a fucking striker. Instead of passing the ball off all the fucking time. I know that's why people are screaming for a world-class striker, because world-class strikers, they don't, yeah, they pass the ball, but when they see even a millimeter of an opening, they take a shot. That's why I hope that when Danny Welbeck is fully fit and ready to go, that he challenges Giroud and takes over his spot because there's only so much I can take. Yeah, Giroud is a good striker, but he's not a great striker. And he won't be a great striker, like I said in my last episode. He won't be a great striker because he's just too unselfish, way too unselfish for a striker. And I know that's some of the major pissing points when it comes to Giroud. And that's what we lacked, with when we had RV Prick. I mean, that dude didn't give a fuck. He didn't give a fuck if someone was wide open on the left hand or right hand side. He was taking a shot. He didn't give a fuck. Even Thierry Henry, same thing. You look at some of our past great strikers, they didn't give a flying fuck if you were wide open. They were going to take the shot. And that's what, of course, we've been lacking. Is kind of like that I don't give a fuck attitude. I'm going to take a shot. It's a completely different dynamic of a team when your striker is afraid to shoot. That's troubling. So I'm kind of hoping once Danny Welbeck gets match fit and ready to go that he can take over that spot. Because obviously even today he wasn't afraid to shoot. He had a couple shots on goal. He had Lloris had to make a worldly save on that curler he had. I mean that thing was flying, and he had to make a worldly save to keep that out. But again, that's what we need more of. I mean that's what we've been missing from Alexis Sanchez today, because he's not afraid to take a shot. He's not afraid to take a few dribbles and create a shot for himself. Even Theo Walcott's like that as well, most of the time. But when your striker's not doing that, I mean, fuck, it sucks. It's terrible that a striker is being that unselfish. Because we need him to take shots. Like I said in my last episode, there was a sequence late in the game where he could have just took it down with his chest, took a touch, and just turned and shot and shoot. But he didn't do it. He passed it off. He tried to head the ball. It's like he doesn't want that pressure to be put on him or something. I just don't get it. But again, it's like it seems like this has almost been like the Arsenal way for the last kind of like several years, that we're always depending on other teams in the BPL to dig us out of our troubles. Yeah, we have to perform. We have to win games. We have to get as many points. We have to get max points every single time out. But at the same time, now we have to depend on others. We have to depend on others to win games from the teams above us. Can it happen? I don't know. Southampton, they don't have anything else other than Premier League to play. Manchester United, all they have to have is FA Cup. Tottenham, yeah, it's going to be tougher for Tottenham coming up because they have that Europa thing coming back up pretty soon. I believe they play Fiorentina, which is going to be tough. They're going to have to travel to Italy. Of course, it's on a Thursday night as well. That's going to be tough for them. So hopefully maybe somewhere, hopefully they can even beat Fiorentina so that they can move on, so that they'll have extra Thursday games, so maybe they can drop a few points here and there. But as far as Southampton and Manchester United, that's going to be tough because they're going to be well rested. They're going to have plenty of rotation in their squad. Of course, with us, we have Premier League, FA Cup, Champions League starting up in a couple weeks. An extra set of games, and I mean, I guess you could say, we should be able to get past Monaco. And if we do, we go into the quarterfinals. That's 2 extra games for us. That's 2 extra pressure games for us. It's going to be tough going from here on out. It's great that we have everybody back from just about everybody back from injury. But again, like I said in my last episode, we have to really figure out who our best starting 11 is, who works well together, and we have to start, holding players accountable for their actions on the pitch. Arsene Wenger has to be, he has to be a mad scientist from this point forward. Uh, Picking the team, picking the right players, picking the right type of chemistry within the players. Who plays good with each other, who doesn't. Obviously today the combination of Ramsey and Santi, it could have easily been fixed. That's the biggest problem with Arsene Wenger I had today. It could have been fixed. It wasn't. Um, you could have pulled Aaron Ramsey in the first half. Coming out in the first half, you could have pushed Santi back in the CM spot, pushed Mesut Ozil into the number 10, and bring on Theo Walcott, or even Rosicky. That would have fixed all of our problems probably in one little substitution. But it didn't. It leaving Aaron Ramsey on throughout the whole game, it killed us. Even more than Santi. You probably could have subbed out Aaron Ramsey and put Rosicky back in that CM spot, and it probably would have been better. Uh, but that just didn't happen. So as far as that went, yeah, that was the biggest misstep by Arsene Wenger throughout the day. I know a lot of people were saying, he was playing for the draw, which again I don't understand that why you wanted to play for a draw. Um, we were only 2 points up from Tottenham going into this game. 3 points is a whole lot better. We had enough quality on that pitch to win that game comfortably too, but we just decided to play a type of different game. Even when you play defensive, even when you play counter-attacking football, there's times within the game that you need to switch things up. You need to change the tempo of the game. You need to hold on to possession and really try to make the other team work and really wear them out. But we just didn't do that. It was on the substitutes. Leaving Aaron Ramsey in the game, it just absolutely murdered us. So going forward, if he has that type of another game, you look at Szczesny, he had a bad run of games. He's sitting down. Why is it okay to sit the goalkeeper down for a number of games, but you won't sit another player down, like an Aaron Ramsey, for a number of games? I know he just came back from injury, but honestly, he should be sat down. After this type of performance, he should be sat down. Just like Szczesny. Take a seat, watch the games from now on, until you can prove on the training ground that you deserve to be back in the starting 11, because that's what it should be. That's how it should be. So it's if you really look at the big picture of this, with Southampton not having any games to really play other than the Premier League, Manchester United only has FA Cup in the Premier League. I know in the grand scheme of things, it's only two more games. It's a round of 16 for the Champions League, and it's the possibly the quarterfinals. That's possibly four more games that we have to play. Big whippy doodah. It's in the time frame that we have to play those games is the big problem. The big problem is with Southampton, they can have all the rest they want. Manchester United, almost the same thing because of how the FA Cup is structured. The FA Cup is basically structured where they basically play. I know they had to play an extra game because of the tie with Cambridge. But most of the time, FA Cup games are on the weekend. They rarely ever play a during a week game. Usually it's in the early stages of the FA Cup when you see a midweek game. I get Tottenham. I just remember that too. They have to play Chelsea at Wembley for the Capital One Cup final, so that's an extra game for them as well. That's going to be backlogged, just like with Sunderland and Man City last year. They had a game or two that they had to backlog where they had to play them near the end of the season. So that kind of benefits us. But again, with the Manchester United and Southampton thing, that's going to be tough. Like I said, that last game, the second to last game at Old Trafford, might decide the season for us. It might come down to that game. And right now, we can't beat them. We couldn't beat them last year with that shitty ass squad. And again, this year we played them. We played them like shit. So there is no guarantee right now that we can actually go to Old Trafford and win that game. Because plus, with our history there, it's dismal. It's horrible. So the big picture on this, it's troubling. Even though we're only 3 points off, uh, after tomorrow we'll be 4 points off of Manchester United if they beat West Ham. Like I said, let's hope West Ham comes out and plays their best game of the season. Of course, another team that we have to look out for too, who we have to play in a month's time, is Liverpool. They have Daniel Sturridge back. Obviously they were 0-0 today. They couldn't score a goal again. They're having troubles scoring goals, but again, you know, getting a guy like Daniel Sturridge, Daniel Sturridge back into the side can be like it is for us with Ozil and Theo coming back. It was kind of like new signings coming in. It's the same thing with Liverpool. If Daniel Sturridge starts going on a tear like he was last year, that can give an entire team a boost. So the big picture here is it's rough. It's not something that you really want to look at in the face. Because if we win this game, if we would have won this game, the North London Derby today, it would just change the whole outlook of the season. Because then Spurs would be like, oh fuck, how are we going to catch them now? We're 5 points off of them. We don't play them for the rest of the season. How the fuck are we going to catch them? But now it's flipped. It's flipped out on us. We could have kept up on Southampton and Manchester United to where we maybe would have been tied on goal differential with Southampton. And if it would have been leading up to that, we would overtake Southampton all day long because they're pretty happy with scoring one goal and then just playing defensive throughout the rest of the game. That's their game this year. That's what they do. So on goal differential alone, we would have overtook them anyway at some point in the next week or two, to be honest with you. But then we have to look out for Manchester United. It's a clusterfuck right now, and these players have to recognize that. These players have to stand up and it's almost like after that Stoke City loss last year, it was just like, holy shit, what was that? And this is a wake up call. This has to be a wake up call to all the players. To certain players, maybe not all of them, because I thought, Ozil played well, even defensively he played well. Welbeck played as best he could. Giroud wasn't all there. Like I said, I already said my complaints. Santi and Ramsey were the reason why we lost the game. Coughlin did his best, played out of his skin. Koscielny and Monreal played well. Mertesacker really didn't have that much to do. Bellerin was left out on an island. You couldn't really give him that much stick. People were saying, well, he had a terrible game. I really don't see where he had a real terrible game, to be honest with you. But, it's some of these guys, they need to have a wake-up call. Especially with, again, the one thing I've been stressing throughout this whole season, too, is the lack of leadership. Without a guy like Alexis Sanchez on the pitch, who is becoming our leader slowly but surely. I can't wait, like I said, past episodes, like long before, I can't wait till he gets fluent in the language, because that's our future leader right there. And you can kind of see today, without him being on the pitch, Santi wasn't as active. And even though if Alexis Sanchez is not on the pitch, it doesn't give you rhyme or reason to not bust your ass. I don't know. But, leave your comments. Where do we go from here? Are you scared for the rest of the season? Do you think we can make top four? Do you think it's possible? Of course it's possible, but a lot of things need to happen from this point forward. A lot needs to happen between Southampton, Manchester United, and even Tottenham. for that to happen. Um, yeah, but leave your comments down below. Vent your frustrations if you need to. What do you think our best starting 11 is going forward of who we need to throw out there the majority of the games, because that's what we're going to need to do from this point forward. We're again, we almost need to run. We need to start running players into the ground again without rotation, so we can get max points every single Premier League game. Because right now, I really don't give a fuck about Champions League or even the FA Cup. I really don't give a fuck about that because that's meaningless at this point in stage. Because if you don't get Champions League, I mean that's a huge hit financially. I know Arsenal can afford it. I know they can afford it. I know they can afford it to maybe stay out of it for a year. But again, if we get 5 or 6, I mean we're thrown into Europa League and we're playing on Thursdays. Again, I know we can afford it, but at the same time, we don't want to play in that fucking tournament. It's useless. That tournament is for losers. Okay, it's not for Arsenal, and these players have to understand that. And I'm almost willing to say, fuck Champions League, fuck FA Cup. Let's just focus primarily on the Premier League, and that is it. Fuck everything else. Put a B side on our next FA Cup tie. Put a B-ish A side against Monaco because that should be good enough to win anyway. And put on our A side every single time, every single Premier League game, no matter who we play. Even in this Leicester game, we need to put out every single good player that we have. If Alexis Sanchez is fit and ready to go, put him out there. Theo Walcott, put him out there. But like I said, put your comments, vent your frustrations, tell me what your tell me what your starting 11 is for the rest of the season, and that'll be it later.